Well, you don't usually. Most people call balls out. You're learning. You're smart. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's September 19th, 2023 City Council meeting. I would ask that you please silence all electronic devices. And for informational purposes, Councilmember Wall is absent from tonight's meeting due to a field trip he's on with the seniors at the Burlington schools. So he's having fun right now. At this time, we'll call on Councilmember Kathy Hikes for tonight's invocation.
Let's take a moment. We await autumn, the new season that is struggling to get a foothold after the many days of relentless heat. We welcome the change and the slightly cooler air. We resist change in so many parts of our lives. Change often requires that we step up, or lean in, or gather our resources, or hold our collective breath until it passes. If we welcome it, embrace it, it can renew us, make us more compassionate, turn us in another direction, one that is better for us in the long run, though it may not be clear how just now. Things we want to remain the same are the best parts of our civic life. We enjoy the fruits of the labors of our city workers. We cherish our relationships with friends and neighbors. We are grateful to those who lead and those who dream of a better way to do things, to make our city a place where all are welcome and all can participate. We try to anticipate where change will come so that we may plan for it. No matter how much we would like to control the future, we know it is not always in our hands. May we do what we can, then let it be. Guide us in our deliberations this evening. Help us find solutions that move our city to a better place. Keep our minds engaged and our hearts focused on peace and on understanding of the needs of the people who live and work here.
Amen. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a staff report on the City of Burlington's efforts to address the PFAS issues. At this time, we'll recognize our Water Resources Director, Bob Patterson. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to briefly give you an update on where we've been with PFAS. I spoke earlier this morning at the North Carolina Pretreatment Consortium meeting, and the title of my talk was our PFAS journey. And I told them that there probably should be a colon there, and it should be an addition. I'm not sure quite what the description would be, maybe what a long strange trip it's been, a long and winding road. Not sure what that destination is, but it has been a journey, and it's still going to continue to unfold. But we're kind of like in the paper maps day, where you got to figure out which route to take rather than pressing Google and it tells you where to go. We'll step back in time a little bit to the summer of 2019. WDEQ asked, or NCDEQ asked the treatment plants in the Cape Fear River Basin to sample our influent in the months of July, August, and September for PFAS. Up until that time, there had been no requirements to test for PFAS. It's the whole realm of PFAS chemicals, polyfluorinated chemicals that are used for flame retardants and in personal products, stain-resistant carpeting, many different products. Those were all considered unregulated, and to much extent today are still unregulated. So we tested those 3 months, and we found higher values than typical wastewater plants in the East Burlington plant. And so we were talking internally, what do? We started sampling a little bit more. In November of 2019, we got a notice of intent to sue from the Haw River Assembly, represented by the Southern Environmental Law Center. That led to a 4-year partnership, if you will, that we reached several agreements with the Haw River Assembly, where we partnered, we sampled, had an extensive sampling program to sample at the plant, also in the collection system to attempt to identify different PFAS sources. And in the meantime, they worked with Duke University, and we split samples, and they did their own analysis. With us tonight, and she doesn't want me to recognize her, but if Sharon Wagner and Adam Verdick, if you'll just stand up from our lab. Our whole lab staff was instrumental in this effort, but Sharon and Adam were both involved directly with the sampling. We took hundreds of samples, a couple hundred samples, in addition to all of our normal regulatory samples. So thank you, Sharon and Adam. Through these efforts, we've identified some sources of PFAS, some major sources, 2 of our textile industries, 2 leachate, landfill leachate providers, and a smaller chemical supplier. And we're working, the chemical supplier closed up shop and moved out of state, which was part of their plan they had just been purchased and they were going to reorganize anyways, we were told. The 2 textile companies, Elevate and Shawmut, are both working on minimization plans. Elevate Textiles has put in a closed-loop system and is in the process of capturing much of their PFAS. They still have some lines of product with medical fabric and also military contracts that they're kind of locked into those requirements. These types of fabrics are oil resistant and stain resistant and blood resistant. But they're working to eliminate PFAS in all their products, the same as Shawmut. So we've had success there. We're beginning to see some results in our effluent values. On the drinking water side, we have gone through a selection process to identify an engineering firm. We're in the process of negotiating a contract. They will investigate sources of PFAS that we found in both reservoir systems. There's a little bit higher level in the Ed Thomas plant, in the Camac-Stony Lake Basin. So we will most certainly be looking at some significant dollars for plant upgrades at Ed Thomas plant, in the order of 10s to 20s to 50. I don't know. Don't want to put a number on it, but it will be a significant dollar
I think you just did.
upgrade. There's no cap on that yet. So McIntosh has lesser values. We may be facing an upgrade there. Maybe we can optimize treatment and get away with less. But we're looking at, like many water treatment plants and systems across the country, with the proposed maximum contaminant levels, we're looking at significant investment to protect our water supply and provide safe drinking water to our customers, probably within the next 3 to 5 years. So that's kind of where we stand, the efforts that we have. Tonight I'd like to introduce you to Paul Calamita, who is an attorney with Aqua Law out of Richmond, Virginia. Paul represents the North Carolina Water Quality Association, which is an organization of the 40 largest wastewater treatment entities in North Carolina. Also represents similar organizations in multiple states. So he's going to kind of bring the national perspective and kind of put our efforts in context of what everyone else is doing and has done so far. So without anything else from me, I'd like to introduce Paul.
Welcome,
Good
Paul.
evening, Mayor, members of council. Paul Calamita with Aqua Law. I feel like a politician rather than a lawyer because all has been said, but not all have said it. So I'll take a couple of minutes with you. I did want a great place to start is Bob and his team. I represent about 300 utilities across the country, maybe more. It might be 500 now. We have statewide groups in North Carolina and South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, some Midwestern states. And none of my clients have made the effort that Burlington, in particular Bob and his team, have made. They've been working with some really talented private consulting engineers and university folks like the Civil Engineering Department from Duke. So that sampling that you heard about, that's really sophisticated stuff that most utilities in North Carolina and around the country couldn't have their internal lab people do, never mind just kind of understand what's going on. So it really was a major effort. These have been challenging issues for everybody involved in that they're unregulated contaminants. So normally when your Water Resources Department deals with users of your sewer system, you have a sewer use ordinance that lays out some common contaminants and levels that are acceptable, and those are pretty similar across the state of North Carolina and beyond. But here, and some of those pollutants are designed, those pollutant limits are designed to protect the plant, some are designed to protect the people running the plant, some are designed to protect water quality. But so we have a foundation, like a legal regulatory foundation to deal with these chemicals and the individual users that are contributing to the system. With PFAS, we don't have any of that foundation. It's brand new. We have companies that are perfectly legally making products and discharging into our systems and other systems around the country, still doing it to this day. And yet we're trying to engage with them because we have concerns about different chemicals that we really don't understand, that we don't even have an approved method to measure. I mean, we are trying to navigate that spaceship manually rather than the normal process where we would have that GPS that Bob was talking about. PFAS chemicals are totally ubiquitous. Everybody in this room has a blood serum level for PFAS. FDA's been sampling 10,000 Americans for 2 decades. The good news is those levels are just plummeting over the last 2 decades, but we're focusing on environmental, like wastewater and biosolids issues. But does anybody like chocolate cake? I really like chocolate cake, super high in PFAS. Maybe it's the way they keep the icing on the side of the cake. I have yet to pass up a piece of chocolate cake despite my knowledge of that. But dust, food packaging is like the #1. So while people may think, oh my gosh, my drinking water, what's going on with biosolids? I mean, the food packaging is off the charts. Dust, carpet, mascara, just fabric softener. I mean, it's just in everything we use. These are legal legal products, some that we want. One of your industries makes medical and military applications that have to have these chemicals or for the medical purpose that's necessary. And so, it's like, do you want bulletproof or bullet resistant? We can do bullet resistant, but that might just be the shirt rather than, so these products, these are important products for our economy, our health, but at the same time, we have concerns. And I think when the Haw River Association approached us, we wish they'd approached us in a different manner than the one they did. But to your credit and your team's credit, you didn't lawyer up and give them a stiff arm. You did the right thing as a public body, and you leaned in. You leaned in hard to really try to understand what the concerns were, even though, in my view, you were in full legal compliance with your permits. I think you were in full legal compliance today. We didn't negotiate and work with them or settle with them because we thought we'd lose. I'm absolutely certain you would not lose. And around the country, I'm not aware of people who brought those cases or won those cases. We did it because you're a public entity, you're a public utility, and it was the right thing to do when your citizens and a downstream sister utility, asks a question. You guys, to your credit, really leaned in hard in a very transparent and cooperative way, responded, and I think that's been a model. Let's see, we've collected a lot of data, a lot of cutting edge data. There's been a big cost to that you have borne. But also the Haw River Association folks have brought a lot of resources to the table too. They've done a lot of data analysis. The Duke folks have been fantastic to work with. One of the things that struck me most about this process was twice in the last couple of years, the Duke experts, who I think are fantastic, at one point they said they were surprised at something, so they got a big surprise. And more recently, after years of working on these issues, they told us they were stunned. Not kind of surprised, not a little surprised, but like stunned at something that they learned working through the Burlington process. And what they've learned will benefit not only the city of Burlington, but communities across the state and around the country. Duke is already using your data and your information in cutting-edge presentations that hopefully other systems will look at and understand. If they had there's an old saying, a well-defined problem is half solved, and this problem still is not close to being well-defined. We've made a lot of progress. Less is better, right? But had they sued us, it really would have been a mistake. Not only would they have lost legally, but we would have missed an opportunity for everybody to better understand what we're grappling with so that we can make the right management decisions going forward. I see the mayor's giving me the high sign already. I'll move along, but there's two types of testing for PFAS. PFAS is like an iceberg, and you can see a tip above the water line. And we have unapproved draft analytical methods that let us identify the part of the iceberg that's above the water line. And there's about 30 to 50 chemicals out of thousands that we can directly measure. We also have some testing below the water line, and that gives us an idea of the remaining thousands of chemicals, how much might be there. And so the city has really done some cutting-edge work, principally with Duke. The Duke folks have really done extraordinary work to help us understand that iceberg below the water line. And it was only through that testing, the non-targeted testing of what's below the water line, that we were able to identify a user of your system who was sending us some very significant levels of precursor PFAS chemicals, not PFAS chemicals, but a type of PFAS chemical that over many years could convert into the chemicals that we could actually measure. And Bob and his team were able to work cooperatively with that industry to take most of those chemicals out of the system through that closed loop system. They still have to manufacture those military and medical products, particularly on the medical side that we all need. But what was interesting, what stunned the Duke engineering professors was that those precursor chemicals, the fairly significant load that was below the water line, was not going downstream. It was going into your biosolids. And so I know you've had some people come up here very passionate, very concerned about their health. That's what my career's been about, is working with public drinking water and wastewater systems across the country. We don't put our fingers on the scales. We don't, we're interested in protecting public health. We spend public dollars as wisely as we can to accomplish that. But I would just suggest that we're still learning. And in my view, those concerns, I think, have been misplaced, particularly on what has got everybody excited more recently and stunned was that there's this big load of these precursor chemicals, but they weren't going out in the effluent of the plant and a risk to anybody downstream. The other good news is on the biosolid side, we really haven't seen impacts to fields that we've looked at. As a matter of fact, DEQ has tested some of our fields, and some of the fields with the heaviest application of biosolids have the lowest PFAS levels, right? That was kind of fun to see, and DEQ wants to follow up. There's been other studies around the country that have basically found that for municipal biosolids, not industrial biosolids, but for municipal biosolids, the concentrations in the fields that have land application are statistically not different than the ones that don't have land application. So we're all learning, and I'm not saying tomorrow, this is not a very well-defined problem, and something could pop up tomorrow that's a major problem. But right now, we don't think there are any issues with your wastewater or your biosolids programs. I do want to say that all of the industrial users that Bob has reached out to, I haven't had to write a single nasty letter to anybody or email. They have been fully cooperative. They do move at different paces. Some are big companies, some are small companies. This is all unregulated stuff that they're learning with us. But they've all been super cooperative, and I think they deserve some credit for that. That is not the case across North Carolina. There are some industries that are not cooperative, that their view is, I'm entitled to you to promulgate these requirements. All the other requirements that you impose on me are promulgated, and get a method, not a draft method, get a final method and figure out some standards, and then I'm happy to comply with them. That has not been the case with the users of the Burlington system. Maybe it's because Bob is so persuasive, good-looking, persuasive, and charming. I got that in, Bob. We did end up with what is referred to as a settlement agreement with Haw River and Southern Environmental Law Center. I think it's a very good agreement, and I will say they've been very good to work with. I think they're passionate about some things, and I think, I'm not sure I fully share all their concerns, but even though we had some differences of opinion, they were very gracious to work with on the negotiating team. I know sometimes publicly things have to be a little different, but I think it's a very fair agreement. It is a cutting-edge agreement that I think will be a model for the rest of the state. It principally requires you guys to continue to do some sampling so that the problem continues to be better defined, which is good for everybody, because then hopefully the solutions will be effective and the most cost-effective for everybody. It does require your industries to do PFAS minimization plans, and we think that's just a good practice. And some of your industries were able to switch products. They didn't even know they had PFAS, and so they talk to their vendors and they swap out a product, and all of a sudden we lose a PFAS or a 1,4-dioxane load. Other users had installed some technology like a closed loop system that took a huge load of PFAS, whether it's harmful or not. It took a huge load of PFAS out of your system. That's the right thing to do. We didn't have to sue them. I didn't write a single nasty letter to them. They just did it. They care. They're good stewards. They're in your community. They drink the drinking water. They care about the people who work at their plants and that they serve in these communities. And they continue to be cooperative. I also think that this agreement doesn't put you at any disadvantage, quite frankly, even though you're ahead of the curve. I think it's the right thing for your system. You're a responsible utility. I think you've done everything that you would expect an upstream utility to have done if the roles were reversed. And I can tell you that's not the case in North Carolina. There are other upstream utilities that downstream water systems are not happy with. I don't think it would be fair to say you're one of them, but I know there are other issues. But it is clear the state of North Carolina is already putting into all the other POTW permits around the state monitoring requirements for PFAS. So what you've agreed to this settlement agreement, we're a little bit ahead because the trigger for the state monitoring is an approved test method. Right now we just have a draft test method, although I think it's pretty good. But legally to impose it on others, they're waiting for an approved method, but that's coming. And then secondly, I think the state of North Carolina will follow your example and require PFAS minimization plans for other non-domestic users of sewer systems around the state. I hope they do it. I've been pushing all my clients in my statewide group to do that. Also, you have to look at new and expanding businesses, and I think that's a very smart thing to do. The last thing you want is for somebody to come build a business with a process that you then turn around and say, well, you've got to do a multi-million-dollar pretreatment program, and all of a sudden that doesn't work in their business model. That's not good for anybody. So I think having your eyes open, there's a lot of opportunities here to minimize. So I don't think it puts you in a disadvantage. I think it leaves your infrastructure still very competitive. I will say that's not the case with a lot of other clients. I have other clients. I just showed Bob an email tonight while we were having dinner beforehand. One of my clients sent me an email. They're in a difficult position with an expanding industry that has high PFAS loads. And they didn't take my advice to vet them a little more carefully. But the other piece of good news is that the major manufacturers of PFAS chemicals, there's about 40 of them in the country, they've all been sued thousands of times. And 3M, for example, is the largest manufacturer. They've announced they're going to not make these chemicals anymore by the end of 2025. So the hope is, remember I told you that FDA study of the blood levels in everybody, 10,000 Americans, that chart is really dramatically downward, which is beautiful, and I think it's going to fall off the cliff here, hopefully. So, so that maybe in 10 or 15 years we don't have to worry about PFAS chemicals. However, we're still going to want those products. You know, do you want rain resistant or rain proof, bullet resistant, bulletproof, stain resistant, stain proof? There will be chemicals that follow, and what I do think is a major takeaway is the process and the evaluation and the eyes open to how to address some of these unregulated contaminants. Hopefully we will stay vigilant through, not just through the agreement that you've signed, but through the processes that Bob has set up in the Water Resources Department so that we stay ahead of these issues going forward. But I think they're in a really good place. I think it's an agreement that you can comply with. I think it makes sense. If we need some tweaks, hopefully our partners at Haw River and Southern Environmental Law Center will work with us, but I do think it's a very fair agreement, and I think it's a model across the state. I think you guys in the Water Resources Department and your non-domestic users need to be applauded. Going forward at some point, domestic loads may become an issue, whether we like really fluffy soft towels with lots of fabric softeners, kind of like putting nutrients on your lawn, right? So there may be maybe the folks that sit in the room here and talk to you about these issues, we all may have to do a few things on our own or be willing to tolerate maybe not quite so fluffy towels, those types of things in the future. But the last thing I did want to say is everything we've done has been fully transparent. You guys have posted every piece of data that you've had, and I really think you ought to be commended to that, because I have a lot of clients who don't want to do that. Number one, they don't understand what the data means because it's unregulated, that there aren't approved test methods, there are no standards. But I think Burlington decided that we're going to learn together, we are going to be fully transparent in this process. I think you have been. The agreement commits you to continue to do that, but we didn't need that. We were on that path long before we signed this agreement. So I did want to commend you guys for, and Bob for his leadership in making sure we tried to understand these issues as transparently as we could. I'm going to stop there. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions for Paul or Bob? Or
Just learned a lot about PFAS in the last several years. Thank you for your help with that.
I think it is important to maybe share a perspective that we've been working on this as a council and as staff with David and Paul, and how many Zoom calls did we have? I said I thought Paul was taller from the Zoom call, and he said the same thing about David.
That's been a charm.
It's got to be.
Mayor, the lawyers will stick together. You're not going to.
But this was not just a journey. This was an educated journey, because many of us didn't even know what PFAS even meant at the point in time. But we didn't jump off a cliff. We kept our feet on the ground, and we utilized our resources to gather educated information to make educated decisions. And we had public speakers that would come in here and maybe made some statements that were grossly inaccurate. We knew it, but we didn't know to what end yet, because this is still an evolving process. But I think what I would like the public to understand is that our city staff and our elected body were working diligently on this for 4 years through an educated process, and not a maybe what you're hearing from those that are more activist related, and trying to really get to the root cause of the situation and see what we could do. And it's ongoing. As Paul said, this is an ongoing process. So to everybody that was involved, I'm very proud to be a part of the group that put forth this effort, and there's still a lot more work to do.
And the irony of this is that 15 years back, this community was really involved with something called the Jordan Lake Rules. And it was basically treatment of runoff. And there was a movement that says, well, we shouldn't allow anybody to put fertilizer on their grass. And there was a certain segment of people who truly believed we could do that. So I think as technology continues and as people are really smart out there, I got to agree with you. I believe there's going to be more challenges down the road in terms of trying to keep a pristine water supply, which is important. But the reality of it, though, is that the majority of the water supplies are impacted by so many different cities. There's so much different manufacturing or business or whatever. And another part of it is so many of these communities, some of their treatment facilities are somewhat antiquated and cannot meet the specifications this probably needs in terms of treating things of this nature. So it's certainly going to be a challenge even going forward.
As Bob mentioned, drinking water issues, and as you think about those drinking water issues, my personal view, even though I think the PFAS levels are going to continue to plummet and maybe not become as big an issue, I do think it's been a wake-up call on the drinking water side that we haven't had in 20 or 30 years. And I think most large water providers in the United States will end up with some type of emerging contaminant barrier technology over the next 10 or 15 years. I think most systems that can afford to do so will make that investment to be able to tell their public that, look, it's all kinds of chemicals. I mean, there's millions of chemicals out there that we have no idea about. These industries, have been manufacturing these products because we wanted these products, and they're going to continue to do that. And so having some type, so the PFAS might be a nice wake-up call. By the way, I'm not aware of any health clusters related to PFAS in the United States. I represent Parkersburg and Vienna, West Virginia. It's Dark Waters, C8. I'm not aware of a single health cluster there. In North Carolina, we have Chemours above Wilmington, the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority. On a call that the Pittsburgh folks raised, the state was asked if there are any health clusters. Their answer to my shock was no. I thought they'd dodged the question. They didn't. They were straightforward. But all that said, I still think the direction is going to be, if you can afford it, to put some type of emerging contaminant barrier technology. I'm glad Pittsburgh now has it. I hope you guys will have it in the future.
There's new technologies being experimented with as we speak.
Right. So I think the EPA MCLs will come out, which will force your hand, but in the end, I think it's probably an inevitable and the right step for American water systems. And then hopefully we won't get this, between that and the vigilance that Bob and his team will put in place, hopefully we won't get any similar surprises in the future. So an expensive light at the end of the tunnel, maybe. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the Code of Ethics, disclosing any conflicts of interest. At this time, recognize City Clerk Beverly Smith.
Thank you. Members of council, it is my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest. I ask if there are any potential conflicts concerning tonight's agenda items.
Our next item is the approval of minutes, August 14th, 2023 work session and August 15th, 2023 City Council meeting. At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the minutes. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item is the request for additions to the consent agenda listed as item N, which is the Morrowtown Playground Equipment Agreement. Item O, which is a resolution to set a date of public hearing for 1842, 1851, and 1861 East Buck Hill Road, contiguous voluntary annexation. Item P, amendments to the CPAC charter. Item Q, advisory boards and commissions appointment. And item R, adoption of traffic ordinance amendment. At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the additions to the consent.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Our next item is the adoption of the agenda. At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the agenda with the additions. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next, we have our consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about the following items, please let us know. Item A, to approve a notice of intent to adopt a resolution authorizing the extension of the lease of city-owned surplus real property located at 1108 Race Street to Alltel Corporation, DBA Verizon Wireless at the November 7th, 2023 City Council meeting. Item B, to adopt a resolution authorizing the disposal and sale of surplus equipment for one 2015 Freightliner model MS-106 with the model VT-651 Johnson Street sweeper body by electronic public auction through govdeals.com. This will go to the highest bidder pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 160A-270 and authorize the purchasing manager to complete all necessary paperwork. Item C, to adopt a resolution to apply for state revolving loan grant assistance funding for a drinking water emergent contaminant evaluation study. Item D, to approve the reclassification of the Animal Services Veterinary Health Care Specialist position from level 20 to level 23, effective in the next pay cycle. Item E, to adopt a resolution to release and convey an easement interest in real property to John W. Frazier III and wife Mary Bryan Frazier. Item F, to adopt a resolution to release an easement interest in real property and convey the same by quitclaim deed to the Burlington Housing Authority. Item G, to adopt a resolution accepting the ARPA grant offer by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality in the amount of $400,000 for Ireland Main Street Stormwater Infrastructure Improvements Project and designating Water Resources Director Bob Patterson as authorized representative to review and sign funding documents. Item H, to approve a temporary street closure in downtown Burlington for the Burlington Recreation and Parks 76th Annual Christmas Parade Special Event on Saturday, November 18th, 2023, beginning at 6 a.m. until 12 noon at the following locations: Lexington Avenue from East Webb Avenue to Maple Avenue, Spring Street from East Webb Avenue to Maple Avenue, Worth Street from Front Street to Davis Street, Main Street from Front Street to Moorhead Street, Front Street from Worth Street to Lexington Avenue, Davis Street from Worth Street to Broad Street, Maple Avenue from Main Street to Spring Street, and City Parking Lot number 1. Item I, to approve a temporary street closure in downtown Burlington for the Burlington Recreation and Parks Department to host the Holiday Magic Special Event on Saturday, December 9th, 2023, during the specified times at the following locations. Street closures will be from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m., Main Street from Davis Street to Front Street, Spring Street from Davis Street to Front Street, closure of Lot 1 access as well, Front Street from Lexington Avenue to Worth Street, closure at Lot number 2 access, and Davis Street from Spring Street to Lexington Avenue. Street closures 3 to 7 p.m., Spring Street from Maple Avenue to Davis Street, eastbound lane only, Maple Avenue from Spring Street to Lexington Avenue, northbound lane only, and Lexington Avenue from Front Street to Maple Avenue, westbound lane only. Item J, to adopt proposed amendments recommended by the Recreation and Parks Department to the City of Burlington's fees and charges schedule. Item K, to approve Budget Amendment 2024-08, accepting grant funds awarded by the fiscal year 2022 State and Local Cybersecurity Grant, SLCGP. Item L, to approve Budget Amendment 2024-09 for the Armin Stone North Carolina Commerce Building Reuse Grant Award and local match. Item M, to approve Budget Amendment 2024-10 for the Alamance Foods North Carolina Commerce Building Reuse Grant Award and local match. Item N, to approve an agreement between the City of Burlington and the Moortown Community Development Group, Incorporated, for playground equipment installed at property located at the corner of Clay Street and Mebane Street. Item O, to adopt a resolution setting a date of public hearing for October 3rd, 2023 to consider the 1842, 1851, and 1861 East Buck Hill Road Voluntary Contiguous Annexation. Item P, to approve proposed amendments to the charter of the Community Police Advisory Team, or CPAT. Item Q, to appoint Kaya Glenn to the Alamance Library Commission for a term that expires June 30th, 2026. Item R, to adopt an ordinance approving the following Traffic Commission recommendations. 1, install stop signs at the connector of Parkview Drive and West Willowbrook Drive, northeast 2 and northwest 1 corners, adjacent to the yield sign intersecting the 2 streets. And item 2, to install a stop sign on Westmoreland Court at its intersection with Westmoreland Drive. At this time, we will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the foregoing consent agenda items.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Glad nobody had any questions, that we had to read that again. Our next item is unfinished business. Item 1 under unfinished business. A public hearing has been continued to consider a request to rezone property from heavy industrial HI and general business GB to planned development PD. This property is located on the block bounded by East Webb Avenue, Johnston Street, East Davis Street, and Everett Street, addressed as 0 East Webb Avenue and consisting of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 136857. As a reminder, this is continued from the August 15th, 2023 City Council meeting. At this time, we'll recognize Planning Director Jamie Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. So staff received a request from the applicant to continue this application to September 14th of 2024. At that time, should you make that motion, staff would then renotice the item again. If for some reason the item came forward prior to that date, we would also renotice as well. The applicant is in the audience in case you have any specific questions for them.
Does anyone have any questions for Jamie or the applicant?
Just hoping that this turns out to come to fruition.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed. If not, is there a motion on the request to continue it to September 14th?
So moved.
Correct.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that was September 14th of 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item are public hearings. We have several public hearings this evening. If a matter of public hearing is of particular interest to you, everyone will have an opportunity to speak as we get to each one. Item 2, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider the Community Development FY 2022-23 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, otherwise known as CAPER. At this time, we'll recognize Michael Blair and Arisbeth Smith from PTRC via Zoom. Is that correct?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Happy to be here. This is our third time we've done this pretty perfunctory end-of-year CDBG spending report that goes to HUD every year by September 28th. And Arisbeth has actually put together the entire plan, so if there's any questions about any of the projects or the spending, generally, just for everybody's information, the city gets about $470,000 a year in CDBG grants. This last year, which was July 1st of 2022 to June 30th of 2023, spent a little over $700,000. So the program is running certainly in the terms of getting projects out and funded and completed at a pretty good pace at this point. So if anybody has any questions, then you could open the public hearing and see if there are any comments.
So this item was discussed at the work session. Are there any questions for Michael or Arisbeth at this time? Okay. Any questions, Harold? You good? This is a public hearing, so at this time we'll open the floor for public comments. Is there anyone on this side of the room that would like to speak on item 2 under public hearings? Is there anyone on this side? that would like to speak? Item 2. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the FY 2022-2023 CAPER.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 CAPER.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you being with us once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Goodbye.
Our next public hearing, item 3, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider a request to amend the conditional industrial CI 909 zoning district of the existing airport to expand the district and include property on which a proposed hangar building will be constructed. The property to be added to the district is located south of the intersection of Alamance Road and Troxler Road on the east side of Alamance Road, addressed as 3536 Alamance Road and consisting of Alamance County tax identification number 112258. The Burlington Alamance Regional Airport property is addressed as 3441 North Aviation Drive and consists of Alamance County tax identification number 120190. This time, once again, we'll recognize Planning Director Jamie Lawson.
Good evening again. This item was presented to you at the August 14th work session. Highlighted on the map includes the area that is request for rezoning. As you recall, this area is subject of a conditional industrial zoning district, and it is in front of you because there is a request to extend improvements into an area that is outside of that zoning district. The Technical Review Committee reviewed the site plan and approved it on July 3rd, 2023, associated with the airport hangar and other specific accessory improvements associated with that, parking as well, and landscaping. There were other conditions associated with that. Staff is recommending this rezoning request because it is consistent with the future land use designation. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended the approval of this rezoning 6-0 at their July 24th, 2023 meeting. So included in the packet is an ordinance for your consideration. The applicant, Dan Daniely, is here in case you have any questions for him, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Okay, any questions for Jamie or Dan, or would anybody like to?
Dan's been no last minute changes, right?
Okay, this item is a public hearing, so at this time we'll open the floor for any public comments on item 3. Is there anyone from this side of the room that would like to speak? Is there anyone from this side of the room that would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Got a second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? At this time, we'll entertain a motion, I think identified on your pink sheet, on item number 3.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the request to amend the conditional industrial CI 909 zoning district of the existing airport to expand the district and include property in which a proposed hangar building will be constructed. The property to be added on the district is located south of the intersection of Alamance Road and Troxler Road on the east side of Alamance Road, addressed as 3536 Alamance Road, and consisting of Alamance County tax identification number 112258. The Burlington Alamance Regional Airport property is addressed as 3441 North Aviation Drive and consists of Alamance County tax identification number 120190. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan, in that the future land use map in section 4 of the land use of the comprehensive plan calls for this area to have institutional-civic uses. The request is compatible with the adjacent industrial uses. The action is reasonable and in the public interest in that the comprehensive plan calls for a variety of uses, including the existing airport and institutional uses in the area, and the request is compatible with the existing zoning and land uses of the area.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Dan, thank you for being here, and thank you for your work on that. Our next item, item 4, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider a request to rezone property from medium residential density, MDR, to high density and a high density residential, HDR, to high density residential, HDR. The property is located from east from the intersection of Flora Avenue and Birchbridge Road, addressed as 2165 Birchbridge Road, and consisting of Alamance County tax identification number 127501. This time we'll recognize our planning director, Jamie Lawson, once again.
Thank you so much. So also, this item was presented to you on August 14th at the work session as well. You can see from the zoning map that's shown here, a portion of the property is in high-density residential. That's in orange. And then the yellow portion is in medium-density residential. So the applicant is requesting the entire property to be in high-density residential. That would allow for all of the uses specific under high-density residential. The proposed zoning is consistent with the future land use designation, which is suburban residential. We have not received any calls regarding this particular application. The Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval of this item at their July 24th meeting, and staff also recommends approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval 6-0, by the way. And so in your packet you have an ordinance for consideration. The applicant, Chad Huffine, is in the audience in case you have questions for him, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Okay. Any questions for Jamie or for the applicant on this?
Chad, we're no major changes, right, from where we've been through the process.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so at this time we will open the floor for public comments. Is there anyone on this side of the room that would like to speak on item 4? Is there anyone on this side of the room that would like to speak on item 4? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we'll entertain a motion, I think identified by your green sheet on item 4.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the request to rezone property from medium residential density MDR and high density residential HDR to high density residential HDR. The property is located east from the intersection of Flora Avenue and Birchbridge Road, addressed as 2165 Birchbridge Road, and consisting of Alamance County tax identification number 127501. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan, in that the future land use map in section 4, land use of the comprehensive plan, calls for this area to have suburban residential uses. The request is compatible with the adjacent residential uses. This action is reasonable in the public interest, in that the comprehensive plan calls for a variety of uses included in residential uses in the area, and the request is compatible with the existing zoning and land uses of the area.
Thank you. So we have a motion for the approval. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion is approved. Thank you. Moving on, our next item, item 5. A public hearing has been scheduled to consider a request to rezone properties from general business GB and neighborhood business NB to general business GB. The properties are located east of Chapel Hill Road, south of South Church Street, and north of Sykes Street, addressed as 1715 Sykes Street and 1824 South Church Street, and consisting of Alamance County tax identification numbers 12166 and 121456. Once again, we'll recognize our planning director, Jamie Lawson.
Good evening again. So this also is a split zoned piece of property. You can see on the zoning map, the front portion of the property is in GB, which is in reddish shade, and then the rear portion is in neighborhood business, which is the pink shade. The applicant is seeking a rezoning request to have the entire property general business. This is consistent with the future land use designation. We are recommending approval. Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval at their meeting in July 24th as well. This item was presented to you at the work session also in August, and I failed to mention all these items have been properly noticed as well. I think there's there are representation from the applicant in the audience in case you have any questions for them. And I am here in case you have any questions for me.
Okay, from council, any questions or concerns on item 5 from Jamie or the applicant? Okay, this is a public hearing, so at this time we'll open the floor for any public comments. Is there anyone on this side of the room that would like to speak on item 5 during public comments? Is there anyone on this side that would like to speak on item 5 during public comments? I think we're down to staff over there, so probably not. Hearing now, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. So moved. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? At this time, we'll entertain a motion on item 5.
Make a motion to approve the request to rezone properties from general business GB and neighborhood business NB to general business GB. The properties are located east of Chapel Hill Road, south of South Church Street, and north of Sykes Street. Addressed as 1715 Sykes Street and 1824 South Church Street, and consisting of Alamance County tax identification numbers 121666 and 121456. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan and that the future land use map in section 4 land use of the comprehensive plan calls for this area to have mixed use uses. The request is compatible with the adjacent commercial uses. This action is reasonable and in the public interest in that the comprehensive plan calls for a variety of uses, including commercial uses in the area. The request is compatible with the existing zoning and land uses in the area.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. At this time, we'll move to item 6. Item 6, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment UDOTA 2-23. At this time, we'll recognize once again our Planning Director, Jamie Lawson. You're popular tonight.
I recognize I am the last person holding people behind the door, so I will be fast. And
There you
you've
go.
already heard this presentation at your work session in August as well. So this, as you know, staff comes in front of you as well as our consultants to prepare UDO text amendments. So as you know, the UDO is a living, breathing document. This is the 12th round of UDO text amendments. It's fairly brief. The first item was to include a use of medium manufacturing. We had light manufacturing, we had heavy manufacturing, but we did not have medium manufacturing. So we felt that that was a gap in the UDO, and this allows opportunity to be more specific when applicants or developers come in. We can really hone in on what the use is. When you create a new use, you have to also create parking requirements as well. And so we've done that. The parking requirements are consistent with the other heavy and light manufacturing uses. This is the definition here for medium manufacturing. And we we are proposing to allow the use in the medium and heavy industrial zoning districts, as well as planned development. We've also made some minor modifications to the medium industrial zoning district table for the lot coverage and the lot area, and some adjustments to prohibited uses within the watershed protection overlay district, and amending the definition of tract. This just summarizes where we were in terms of these amendments. They were presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting in July, the work session to you all in August, and now we're here for the public hearing on these items tonight. You have an ordinance included in your packet for consideration for this item as well.
Any other questions for Jamie on this request? This is a public hearing, so at this time we'll open the floor for any public comments. Is there anyone from this side that would like to speak on item 6? Is there anyone on this side would like to speak? Peter, do you want to say anything on it? You good?
No, Jamie did an excellent job.
Okay, I was just checking. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? At this time, we'll entertain a motion on item 6.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the request to amend the City of Burlington Unified Development Ordinance with the proposed text amendment. The motion is based upon the consistency of the proposed text amendment with the comprehensive plan, and that Section 4 Land Use Goal 1, Recommendation 5 of the comprehensive plan calls for an update of the Unified Development Ordinance. Section 4 Land Use Goal 1, Recommendation 5 of the comprehensive plan calls for ensuring sound land planning decisions that are consistent with the vision of the plan. The action is reasonable and in the public interest, and that Section 4 Land Use Goal 2, Recommendation 4 of the comprehensive plan addresses confusion, conflicts, and obsolescence of the zoning code through a new Unified Development Ordinance. Section 4 Land Use Goal 2, Recommendation 4 of a comprehensive plan, a new UDO will be modern, graphically intensive, and user-friendly from both a public petitioner and administrative perspective.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? So item 6 is approved. At this time, we move into public comment period. We have none this evening, so we'll transition to council comments. I've got just a few real quick, brief. I do want to remind everybody that we have Fourth Fridays, which is Phoenix Fourth Friday. That's this Friday, is that right, Morgan? At downtown. So that's always a big event. That's going to be a huge event for sure. And we hope everybody comes out and enjoys us for that event. I also would like to give a special thanks to our local chapter of the American Federation of the Blind. They had their statewide meetings held in Burlington, and our local chapter was the host, and Beverly worked with them, and I got to welcome them to Burlington at Best Western. They were at Best Western. Had 120 participants statewide. It was a very big event, and our local contingency, everyone would have been very proud of the work they did. So that was a very special morning, and I appreciate them letting me come out and give the welcome. And then we did have a meeting, Craig, I think Rachel and I, with Burlington Animal Services. Jess hosted a meeting with Paul's and the county and Sheriff's Department to really kind of get up to speed on some of the things that we were looking at that we needed, and just to give really an update, which I think we're going to pare that down and do a work session update. Is that right? So I don't want to give it all away, but what I do want to say is that we have an absolutely phenomenal animal services, and what they've been able to accomplish, and we've talked about it a lot, but I look forward for everyone seeing that presentation. And the one thing that amazed me more than anything, and there were a lot of things, is that we have 667 volunteers. So just significant. And We do have some emerging needs that are going to be coming down the road, but Jess will talk about that. But we've got a very strong operation. And again, everybody would have been very proud of the presentation here. I'm glad we'll all get to see it. And then just as a matter of record, I think we've all received several inquiries about the tree removal at South Church at Harris Teeter. Has anybody got any calls other than me?
Oh, yeah.
So I do want to remind everybody that this is part of an NCDOT project. It's in preparation for the intersection improvements at this location that was approved through SPOT and TAC many moons ago. But it's not City of Burlington cutting these trees down. It's NCDOT, so call Raleigh. And then, can you believe we just went through the consent agenda and we were talking about closing streets for holidays? So it's upon us. Any other council comments?
If I could, I want to certainly thank the planning staff and the board. If we went through this, many of you all, monotonous reading of all these changes to the UDO, and UDO is just simply that. It's a changing document that from years past where you had a planning document that was sorted in stone. Each year now, the staff can take a look at it with P&Z and then with the council and make modifications that would improve the document. And I think that's been one of the biggest improvements in the last 4 or 5 years we've been able to pull off in this organization. It changes with time, and guys, thank you for all the work you all do.
We rolled out the UDO. When was that? 2019, fall, about this time of year, maybe a little later. So 4 years later, we do these text amendments every quarter, and sometimes even in between, if staff spots something that maybe doesn't make a lot of sense or needs clarification or needs improvement. And sometimes we get feedback from the community that drives those changes. So Harold's 100% correct. We did not have that until then. It was a book, and that was the book. So now we got a book that keeps changing.
We, just a sort of a historical comment, the document we were using prior to this was adopted in 1971, the old zoning code. It was just, the footnotes began to be more than the actual text of it. And so when the UDO was introduced and we adopted, even though we continued to amend it, it was long overdue, much needed, and it's doing a great job. It really is.
I'm gonna get this a little wrong, but our sign ordinance was 17 pages with 43 amendments, give or take.
That's close.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Any other council comments?
And it was hard to understand in any of it.
I couldn't understand. Page 7 would contradict page 3. Any other comments from council?
Can I make one?
Absolutely.
I'll tell you about a big event we're hosting this week that maybe some of you don't know about, but we're hosting the Women's National Disc Golf Championship. It's a co-hosted event with Alamance Parks, the CBB, and the PDGA, the Professional Disc Golfers Association. Been working on it for a good while. We have over 350 ladies here, which is a record number of participants in this event for that association. Never had that many players before. We have, they're from all over the United States and multiple foreign countries. In fact, the #1 player in the world this year, and she's from Estonia. So not very, didn't even know they played disc golf in Estonia, but anyway, they do. So we're very happy to be hosting this. It's going to be at Cedar Rock Park. The players have been coming in yesterday and today. They practice through Wednesday, and then competition rounds start on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All of it will be played at Cedar Rock Park. They have 3 disc golf courses there in one location, which makes it ideal for hosting a championship like this. But haven't had a whole lot of publicity, although there's a billboard out at on the interstate at Maple Avenue, 145 exit, that some of you might have seen. But anyway, we're glad to have this event. The PDGA is having a lot of people here. They live stream this, not on regular TV, but you can get it on a computer. They have channel thing that they do with that. So we'll get some recognition out of that, and have a lot of, and I know there's a lot of people in the disc golf community, including Mr. Alfonso, have talked to me about it. So we're glad to be able to host this. It's the first time the city's ever been one. They had a men's masters, which was a whole lot smaller, about 10 years ago at Cedar Rock. But we're glad to have this, and another event that'll bring a lot of economic impact to the city. All the players have to stay in the hotels. Most of the hotels are here in Burlington, and but a short ride down to Cedar Rock Park from there. So, and the restaurants, we got a lot of activities planned for the ladies at different places in town, and so we're very happy to have them, and hope it turns out really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for that update. That sounds tremendous. Okay, anything else? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. We have a motion. Is there a second? All in favor signify by aye.